We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to take the law, we enforce it. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All. I'm your host, Dave Bourne, and it is February 18th, 2016, and I'm coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for listening to Nonpartisan Liberty for All. We're on weeknights, Tuesday through Thursday at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. And you can listen live on Spreaker.com and NonPartisanLibertyForall.com. And to the archives on Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, and SoundCloud, as well as a few other, Tumblr as well. Forgot about them, as well as a few other applications. And they post immediately after the show to YouTube and Spreaker and SoundCloud and Tumblr. We promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do whatever you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom, as well as exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent, by threat of force and violence. Lots of stuff to talk about today. We have a few articles that I want to talk about. Of course, the main story is the attack on the Bundy family, both Cliven Bundy and both his two sons, or two of his sons, as he has more than two, were arrested in different circumstances. So we'll go over that. We did do a show on the two brothers that had went to Oregon to make a statement regarding the land over there, also regarding a son and father that were sentenced to 5 years in jail based on an anti-terror law after they had already served time and been sentenced, which there's so many issues with that, because I would see that first as a double jeopardy law, never mind the fact that they weren't tried or sentenced based on this law. After you've been sentenced and done your time, I don't know how you can go back and change the sentence there. So we'll talk about some of that as well. We'll also talk about the JTY, I guess they call themselves. Well, it's not JTY, it's something else. I call them JTY, the young jerks, or what do they call themselves? Is it YTY? Something young jerks. I don't know. I call them the young jerks. I don't know why they say they're young, because this fucker who's the main guy, this Jerk Unger, I can't remember his real name now because his name rhymes with jerk. And their whole, not only their whole analysis of what happened in the Bundy Ranch situation, but what happened in so many different situations and their breakdown on it. I mean, this guy is just a fucking ass. Anyway, they're the Young Turks, but so I get that wrong, because if they always have the Young Turks, they always have the TYT. So I had the J. I had it right. I had the JTY. No, actually, I didn't have it right because it would be the Young Jerks. It would be TYJ. So anyway, and the guy's name, I can't remember. It's something Unger, Jerk Unger, but his name does literally rhyme with jerk, and I don't think that is for a... I think that is for a reason. They also have Anna Kasparian, and I know people go nuts over her. She's not really even that cute, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, she is cute, but she's not like the type of girl that, oh my God, like she's not like a model. I mean, she's pretty for someone who's on a popular YouTube news show, and they are a popular YouTube news show. They're one of the most popular YouTube news shows probably out there. But they're nothing more than MSNBC on YouTube. They probably do better than MSNBC, to be honest. But that's what they are. They have the same type of opinions. They're not bringing anything new. Because I used to look at them as a... when I'd catch just a couple of bits of some stuff here and there. And it would usually be things that were... about maybe privacy or something like that. Something that I caught a bit of that I agreed with or something. And I looked at them as an independent journalist. And they somewhat are because they're on YouTube, but there's somebody probably behind them who's funding them who, as far as I'm concerned, are the same type of people that fund MSNBC because they have the exact same opinion. So we'll talk about the Young Jerks as well. We'll also talk about Beyonce, and I didn't even know this was an issue because I didn't really watch the Super Bowl. I saw about 2 plays and checked the score. I've pretty much boycotted the Super Bowl, even though I'm a huge football fan. I did watch the Patriots Seattle, but out of the last 3 years, that's the only one I've watched. And a lot of it is because of the ridiculous security, the snipers that they have there. And someone had made a statement, somebody in either the NSA or CIA, that they weren't doing enough. Actually, it might have been Donald Trump, come to think of it, that they weren't doing enough at the Super Bowl, because I think he made a statement, well, what if, a big helicopter came over the Super Bowl and dropped a bomb? I mean, these guys come up with these ridiculous scenarios. I had just watched a documentary on terrorism, and I had there was a former analyst on who said straight up, like, they were asking about, worrying about terrorism. He's like, I don't worry about it because the chances are like slim to none that you're going to get caught in a terrorist attack. And that's a fact. Your chances of being in a terrorist attack, and I think I said this earlier this week as well, are probably like your chances of being struck by lightning 2 days in a row. It's just, it doesn't happen. There are so many other things that are more common. And even when you get to other things that are more common than that, but are still not that common, like being in a mass shooting, it's a little more common than a terrorist attack, but not much. So the media, between government media, politicians always trying to scare you, and we've seen the scare, especially from the Republicans. And, of course, I don't believe in either party. I think they're both bullshit. But in watching both the debates, and there's a Democratic town hall here in Las Vegas right now. I just caught the first hour of it with Bernie Sanders. I don't really like the town hall format. See, I'd like it if they were both together on the stage at the same time. Like, so the town hall format is set up where you have an audience and they have the candidate on the stage and they go and ask questions, and that's fine. But they have first one candidate, and they can get away with this in the Democratic debate because there's only 2 of them. But why not have both Hillary and Bernie Sanders on at the same time, and then have somebody, okay, this question's for Bernie Sanders, and then Hillary can maybe respond, vice versa. Then you get an actual debate and town hall going on at the same time. I don't know why they didn't do it that way. It would not only be more entertaining, but it'd be more informative, because then they get to respond instead of just like you see the first person, then you see the second person. You have to remember what the first person said if it's something where they are disagreeing. Like if Hillary's saying, well, unlike Bernie, I feel this way. And then you have to go back and remember what question did they ask Bernie and what did he say. So I think it would be much better if they did a town hall that way. But my point was, one thing about the Republican debates that I noticed, and this is just being totally objective, totally nonpartisan. Again, we are Nonpartisan Liberty for All, NonPartisanLibertyForall.com. Check us out there. But the Republicans in this debate, or in this debate season, because it's been almost every fucking debate, they're trying to scare the shit out of people for no reason. Well, obviously not for no reason, because they have their own private agenda. But it's not based in any type of reality. In the Democratic debates, it has come up, but not even close to as much. Now, don't get me wrong. The Democrats are just as full of shit as the Republicans. And you look at Bernie Sanders talking about, we're going to do this for free and this for free, and like the money's going to come off, fall from the sky. My father would always tell me when I was a kid, money doesn't grow on trees. Too bad it doesn't. But basically it might as well, because it's made out of fucking paper anyway. But point being, they're just as fucked up. They're just fucked up in a different way. And like I've said before, I mean, do you want the fascists or do you want the socialists? So that's really what it is. But I don't remember past debates, because not having the show, I didn't follow them like I did. If I happen to see one, then I happen to see one. Plus, YouTube was around, but it wasn't as big as it is now. And I don't recall being able to get it at work. I think it was blocked. So I would listen to music at work. I wouldn't listen to YouTube. Where I'm at now, I can listen to YouTube while I'm working instead of listening to music or something. So I don't recall, and plus it's been years, I don't recall if they made it as big as an issue. I'm sure they did, especially in 2004. And probably in 2008 as well. And probably in 2012, now that I think about it, if you go back to every debate after 9/11. But I mean, I don't remember it being every single candidate is just hardcore. They really are. They are just straight up, ISIS is going to end the world. I mean, ISIS, we should all be walking around with bulletproof vests on, because ISIS might attack us. Look, let me tell y'all something right now. If ISIS were to walk in the door right now, they'd be dead in about 5 seconds. I have a gun about fucking a foot from my hand. So maybe they could outshoot me. I'm not saying I'm the best shot. So I guess they could come up with AK-47s. It depends how many of them, because say there were 3 or 4. But I'm taking some of them motherfuckers with me. And if there was any reason to be on the lookout for ISIS, plus I know that they were trying to get in, and I grabbed my shotgun. I shouldn't be naming all these guns. And then we'll really see fucking, who's so fucking tough, okay? Not like having a shotgun is being tough, but look what they're going around doing. They're pussies. So I know what an AK bullet looks like. I know what an AK bullet does because they mostly use AK-47s. And I know what a shotgun does. So a shotgun against 3 fucking ISIS members. And most of these guys remember, well, I can't say most, but a percentage of them are just paid. Okay, they're not part of any jihad or give a fuck about anything except getting their paycheck, are going to run out the fucking door. So the fear of ISIS, for me, first of all, they're not going to end up here anyway. But I'm just even looking at a worst case scenario. I'm pretty well protected. I'm not really worried about it. Even if I wasn't well protected, I wouldn't be worried about it. When I used to carry around a tire iron, or not carry it around literally, I mean, it was in the car, or I didn't have it for this reason, but I have the thing that locks the steering wheel. I still have it. It's in my car. I don't have it there as a weapon. I mean, I have it to, in case I ever want to use it to lock my steering wheel. But if somebody tried to attack me, I may, just automatically grab it. And I still feel more comfortable with that and ISIS being around. So, point being, ISIS is about as much of a threat as, I don't know, I can't think of an analogy right now, but it's as much of a threat as like the world just blowing up all of a sudden for no reason. And I don't want there to all of a sudden be a nuclear war, but I mean from nothing, just like blowing up. The world imploding. Now, I guess climate change people would tell you that, oh, that's very possible. But ISIS is not a threat. But at least here. Now, I'm not going to say they're not a threat if you're in Syria or if you're in Iraq or anywhere in the Middle East. That's a totally different story. But if we're talking about the United States, Canada, even Mexico, I know they wanted to talk about, bring up Mexico and, oh, there's some ISIS training camp. And the U.S. will only get attacked if the CIA and the president, and maybe not the president because they want deniability, but if these groups want the U.S. to get attacked, they will get attacked. That's the only reason. It's because the U.S. told ISIS to attack the United States and brought them in here. Just like another little terror plot that happened in the past. So going back to the point, though, they are really just going hardcore, man. Like, it's ridiculous. It's the Republican debates are like this. Donald Trump yelling at people and then everybody else scaring people about ISIS. That's what it is. It's a fucking joke. They're all a bunch of jokes, really. Hillary is a joke. Sanders, they're all. I feel like it's like they're a bunch of cartoon characters. It's a circus, just like Showtime created a show, The Circus, because that's really what it is. But I'm sure they meant it more as it's a circus in that all the stuff they have to do, but they might have had the double meaning in their mind too, that it's a circus where these guys are all like fucking circus clowns. Or not just clowns, the bearded lady, the whatever, all the things that they used to have at the circus, I guess. Which that must have been a long time ago, because I'd never seen any of these things except the clowns, I guess. Clowns always stayed for some reason. Anyway, we will be trying, speaking of the debates, we will be trying to talk about what I've had on the agenda since Tuesday this whole big thing about Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump and how people are so excited about them and they're having parties and get-togethers and all of this shit. If we have time, I will talk about that as well. I know I've kind of had it on the agenda since Tuesday, but we went over with the topics, and that's why I do a 3-hour show, ladies and gentlemen. I hate saying ladies and gentlemen. I don't know why I just said that. But before we get to our main topic, and I hate when the computer fucking does this, one of my computers, it essentially just times out way too quick, and I know I have to set it so it doesn't time out so quick because I'm always logging back in because I want to check the levels of my mic and I can see them. If it times out, I get the screensaver as opposed to being able to see them. So they look good right now. But before we get to, as I said, our main topic and our other topics, which I think it will be a fun and interesting show today, as some of the things aren't as serious. But, of course, like every show I do, there's a lot of seriousness. There's a lot of bad things. There is a lot of fuck. So I just used Google Chrome, right? And I put 3 articles on there, and something went wrong with one of the pages, and it says, "Oh, snap, something went wrong." So Google's trying to be cool and shit. Well, that might have been cool in like 1990, but they're a little behind. So there's a couple articles I want to talk about, things going on. We've been getting away from that a little, well, certain types of articles, and I want to make sure, part of the show, part of the main purpose of the show is to expose news that doesn't get exposed. It's not just to regurgitate what's on fucking MSNBC or Fox or CNN. Now, because of the debates, and people seem to like especially hearing about Trump. And I've seen other people's numbers too. I was looking at somebody today who was actually really good. I don't totally agree with them in their content, but as far as them being a professional, they were really good. They're definitely better than me in a lot of ways. The only thing that I would say is I'm satisfied with most of the content that I put out there because there's something I'm trying to accomplish. But as far as being professional and how they do their show and how they come off, there's no doubt they're better than me. So there's somebody to listen to. And I know the things that I do. I realize for all you people that have criticized it, I know I'll pause at some points. Now, there's 2 reasons why I do that. One is totally different than the other. One is because I'm trying to multitask, and I get totally fucking thrown off where somebody will call me or something, and I'm trying to talk and look at the message, and that will totally throw me off. So that actually makes sense. But then there's I either go blank or I'm trying to think of something. And after working all day, trying to put this all together, being exhausted, it's not as easy as you think. So I'd like to see somebody work a full-time job and then come home and do this after preparing for it and all of that. So I shouldn't even say it that way because that's more aimed at the people who criticized it in a negative way, because I had talked about a person who totally trashed negatively my show for a personal reason. And critiquing the show is fine. So there was a lot of people that just critiqued it and said, like, my brother even told me that, like, sometimes you slow down, and that was fine. I'm glad he told me that, and I noticed it anyway. But that's one of the reasons why. And I have to work on things like that. If I want to be at the same level, and this is what I look at it, I want to be on the level of whoever is, well, not to put it the best out there, but to be the best I can be. And I want to be on a professional level. So my show is just as professional as any other show. It's not, but at some point, hopefully it will be. So any critiques or anything like that, and I'm starting to notice it a lot more, especially when I listen back. Not only do I notice when I'm bad, I notice the good points as well, and I'm building off of that. And when I listened to that guy today, I should give him a shout out because he actually is a follower of mine on Spreaker as well, even though I think I don't know what he caught of my show, but I would say we probably disagree on a lot of things because he seems more conservative, but he did seem like he had some libertarian tendencies as well. But he definitely is, he's on a couple radio stations I saw. He has definitely perfected his craft, and you have to do that. So yes, I do realize that I do that. It is something I'm working on. The one thing I can't avoid, though, is, I mean, I can try to avoid it, but is the distraction and trying to stop myself from, I mean, I can't really stop myself from doing the other thing if I have to do it. I guess I could go to music or something, but that would just be corny. So that I don't think it's ever going to change. There's never going to be I'm going to learn to be able to read a text and talk to you on the radio. The thing I can change, though, is be more prepared, work more on my thoughts in my presentation and getting them out there and not pausing. Sometimes I do it on purpose, but you can tell when I do, probably because it sounds more planned. Like when I slow down and I pause on purpose to give the audience a second to think about it. So let me think of like an example of that. If I'm saying, well, this happened today, and then, whatever, that probably wasn't a good example, but I'm just trying to get through this rather quick. But I will pause as a way of allowing people to kind of process that information. But you can tell when I'm doing it. It's pretty obvious. It's not like me stopping like this and then, well, I'm trying to think of what to say next, and then, like, that's when I'm fucking up, and I realize that. So I do appreciate the constructive criticism, but not the certain person who's fucking terrible himself and is going to talk shit about me. And I don't know, sometimes you might notice this on the radio that just the old school shit comes out when I get mad. I don't do anything about it, and I wouldn't do anything about it, but that old school street shit, like, like, motherfucker, you want to talk shit? But I'm not, it's not something I'm going to do anything about. I know who the person is. I'm not going to attack them or something or anything like that. The only way I would ever do anything is if they attack me. And I know they would say, well, I got a bunch of guns. Yeah, so does everybody. So I would never, though, the only way something would happen is if I was attacked first. But if I saw them, I'd probably call them a fucking asshole or something. But I might not even do that. It depends on my mood. I'm not really confrontational. I don't want there to be trouble. I really don't. You get in your moods where you're mad and you just need to get it out. And I like to just get it out by saying, you know, fuck that motherfucker. If I see him, I'm going to fucking smack him or something. Or knock him the fuck out. But I'm not actually going to do that. That's how I get it out. So I guess my way of getting things out is just saying something like that. And some people may take that the wrong way. They may think like, oh shit, he's going to go hit this motherfucker when he sees them. But no, I'm not going to do anything. It's just my getting that frustration out. Unless I'm attacked and I have to defend myself, then that's a whole nother story. But I'm not going to get in a fight over somebody talking shit. It would have to be something very serious. Like if I always go to this, if I had a daughter and she was raped and murdered and they brought that up and then kept bringing it up or something somehow if we were in a place where I couldn't get out of that place and they kept bringing it up and maybe I'd knock them the fuck out. Besides that, anyway, speaking of knocking people the fuck out, no. But speaking of defending yourself or allegedly defending yourself, cops killed nearly 4 people a day in January, which is more deaths a day than most countries kill per year. Now, I still don't know if they're on pace to break any records or this is just their regular numbers because they kill about 1,200 people per year. This is from the Free Thought Project. And, big shout out, of course, to them and everything they do. They actually did something interesting in this article that I like, although you can't totally see it because there's a police arm with a gun over it. But because I don't think that was their intention, really. But there's like little people in all the places, I think, where they killed people. And you look at the East Coast and it's just covered. You can't even see it. But that would be cool if they actually had a map that you could totally see because you see a hand and a gun and you can't see Las Vegas. It's covered over. And it's covered over by the hand of the cop with the gun. And then there's a badge in the middle. But to see where all the killings kind of happened. But they did a good enough job where, for the most part, you can see where a lot of these killings happened. And the East Coast, like I said, is just covered. Of course, the East Coast is a lot smaller. And Oregon and Washington seem to have a lot of people, too, as is Southern California. But like I said, I can't see Mid-Nevada, Las Vegas, and most of California, except for Southern, kind of leading into Mexico there, as well as you can kind of see the middle of the country, but that's where the badge is. But so they killed 113 people, so that would make them on pace, I believe, to break their record, because 10 times 113, well, 10, that's 1,000, then 10 times 13 is 130, so that's 1,130 at 10 months, and then it's 226, so I said what, 1130, 1330, 1356. So yeah, they're on pace to break their record, because that would be 1336. Now, they have the stats of other countries, and I know what people say, of course, the whole issue being, well, in England, yes, they only killed 2 people, but it's because the people don't have guns. And I will never forget this when her name is Nina Tardin, and I won't forget her name. She is the president of one of those fucking progressive think tanks or organizations. I don't even know what you'd call them. This bitch, that's what she is. I'm sorry, I'm going to use the C word. This fucking cunt, okay? I'm sorry, but I had to. her explanation as to why so many people were killed by police. And of course, this was before Ferguson and all that. Now she's probably on the other side because she's just a political tool. She's a part of those groups that they infiltrate, different things that happen and then push them in a certain way. And that's what I think is going on with Black Lives Matter. But we'll talk a little about that when we talk about Beyonce. But I did a whole show about Black Lives Matter if you want to listen to it, which my only issue with Black Lives Matter is the fact that they call themselves Black Lives Matter, but they put the police in the background. They're saying Black Lives Matter, and then it's, are you for the police or are you for all black lives? Because if you're for all black lives, then you should be looking at the ones that are killed by other black people. If you're really about the police, then be about the police and put it in your name. But what you're doing is you're taking away the attention from the police, because that, to me, is the problem. And you're making it look like, oh, it's just racism that is the issue. Not to say that racism doesn't factor in, but by taking it into a racial realm almost 100%, at least name-wise, you're taking it away from it's a police issue. And there's plenty of other ethnic groups that are killed by police, including white people. And my issue is police killing people, regardless of the color. Not just police killing people, police harassing people, police beating people, police putting people in jail that shouldn't be there. All of these things. I've had a lot of them happen to me, unfortunately. So anyway, back to other countries. So in Britain, and the population in Britain, granted, is a lot smaller as well. But we could take percentages, and I'm sure the United States would be huge compared to Britain because there's only 2 people. There was one, and that's in 2 years. So let me make sure I have this right. So in 2011, in 2011 it was 2 people. 2012 it was 1. 2013, no one was killed, but they shot 3 bullets. So in the last 2 years, 4 people lost their lives. But that doesn't add up. It's 3 people. They didn't, because they said 2 people in 2011, 1 person 2012, unless they're counting 2014, and they just didn't list it. But so it's bringing the total number of citizens killed in the UK to 7 in the past 5 years. Now, if you count Scotland, because when you say UK, if you just say England, I look at England or the British. But if you say UK, Scotland, Wales, England, which still is a much lower population. However, again, even if you do it by percentage or per capita, you're going to have a lot more. And again, I realize that they would say, well, people over there don't have guns. And that is true. But at the same time, you have plenty of people that are being killed that are unarmed or armed with knives or armed with other things. Unfortunately, the FBI is not keeping track of those statistics. So we as people, and this is from the nonprofit Fatal Encounters, which thank you for tracking these statistics. But if it's a lot harder for normal people to keep statistics compared to the police. So hopefully more news organizations that are able to get this information faster, even though, again, we being anybody, should be able to get freedom of information requests. But And that's where, it mentions the Freedom of Information Act. So more people are getting involved in these numbers finally, which is great that they're doing that. Of course, you have the Killed by the Police website where they are going in and keeping track on a daily basis. They find, I don't know how they do it, but they search all around the country because you're going to see it somewhere unless the person just totally disappears, which I'm sure they miss a couple because there may be people that are murdered by cops and totally disappear. But they'll take the article and post it. Then you can do more research on it. And this is what I've done is I've went to Killed by Police. So I thank them. And one time I went through about 50 killings by police, and which is no easy feat. I mean, not that it's not easy. I mean, it's easy. Anybody can look in the internet, but it's no quick feat. It took a while. And essentially what I did was I went through all of these articles and I looked for ones where there was no gun, first of all. And from there, I looked up the details. I didn't just go, not just the article that they had posted. I researched and looked up multiple articles and compared facts from multiple articles and whatever else I could find on the internet. And I found things like this one I'll never forget. There was a guy in a parking lot, had a pellet gun, was shot and killed. And of course, it's the cop's word against his. The cop says that he grabbed his pellet gun and like pointed at him or something, which is such, I'm really supposed to believe that because the guy knows that unless he wanted to kill himself, and that would probably be their story. Oh, he wanted, to kill himself. So that's why he was in a parking lot alone by himself, not like speeding down the street trying to get pulled over so he could get killed that way. It just didn't make sense. So it's like they planted a pellet gun. He had a pellet gun in his car somewhere or on the seat or something like that. And the same thing with knives. Out of the majority of those 50, I found, knives. Supposedly they ran at an officer with a knife. There were like 4 officers. Officers had guns. They kept coming with a knife. Or they had an axe and they kept coming with an axe. Or they had this. And it's the officer's word against the person. And I haven't talked a lot about the police recently because it got to the point where I felt like I was just telling the same story over and over and over again. Now, on one side, I want to make sure we don't get away from that. I mean, I had a whole night that I did for at least a year probably. I had changed the name of it a couple times. We had, when I had somebody that was the head of a cop block, I had Cop Block Thursdays. Then I had And the Government Police Thursdays because I really wanted to push that we don't need police to keep us safe. We can have security. And I finally got to the point where I felt like I was just telling the same story over and over again. And really, I kind of was, because police are just doing the same thing and nobody seems to give a fuck. And as I have said, it goes beyond the whole killing people. Of course, people will pay. I mean, you'd think people would pay attention to someone getting murdered by the police, but they don't even pay attention to that. People don't realize that the stories you've seen on the news, maybe you heard about 4 or 5 of them that they actually covered of people getting murdered. 4 or 5 people that actually got murdered out of like 1,200 you actually hear about. Now, you'll hear about it on your local news. So like if somebody gets killed in Las Vegas, yeah, if you watch the local Las Vegas news, you'll hear about it. But that's about it. You're not going to hear about it in California, or you're not going to hear about it in Arizona, even in neighboring places. And there's so many that are just so obvious. There's one where I always have to bring this up because this is one of the worst ones I've ever seen where they did nothing and I can't think of the name right now, but I should look it up because I think she's still my friend on Facebook. But I know her brother was Jesus. Was his name Jesus? I'm pretty sure. He was shot to death. I think it was Arvilo. I have to. I don't have Facebook up on this computer. Oh, okay, I do. I'll look through it while I'm talking about it. I might have to stop in the middle because you know about my multitasking. But her brother was murdered by a cop, and they had the video that shows that he was totally unarmed, that he was just getting out of his car, and the officer gave him about 2 seconds and then just unloaded. And I'm not sure. I thought she was still my friend. There's just too many people to go through. The name just escapes me right now. I'm sorry. And she knows who she is. But I think his name was Jesus. But the video's out there, and it's just disgusting. It's just the cop just comes over and just, bang, bang, bang. He shot him like 13 times. And right after that, not right after that. Well, actually, there's two things that happen. So right after that, the wife comes over because it was right in front of the house. He was getting out of the car. She's screaming and crying. They throw her to the ground, handcuff her, treat her like shit. Then the cop first says, well, he had a gun. Then he says he had a knife. And then they throw it in their face. So they've been protesting for years. I think this was 2013. It might have even been 2011. I'm sorry, there's so many stories that I go through that it's just, but she's still out there protesting, and the guy went up to her and said, well, you guys can't do nothing. And I guess he got suspended 3 days, that's it. And the guy even told her, you guys aren't going to be able to do anything. Nothing's going to happen to me, blah, blah, blah. It just... The guy was a piece of shit. And, of course, he's still an officer who could do it to another family. And that, if you want to look at something obvious, you want to look at something that there's no argument there that most people would look at that and say, okay, that's clear-cut murder. At least I would think that that's what the conclusion would be on that. That's an easy one to look at, in my opinion. It's a very easy one to look at. But nothing happened. I never heard about it. It happened in mid-California, like I think the Sacramento area, the town around there. Nothing ever happened as far as the news that I can recall. And that's really what happens on a daily basis. And nothing happens to anybody. And people think, oh, yeah, this is what bothers the fucking shit out of me. Is people think, oh, yeah, the police has recently have started killing people. Like, they think this fucking shit all of a sudden just started, like last year. Ernesto Dueñas, I'm sorry, and the sister's Reina. So it just took me a while to go through and find her. And she came on the show and talked about it. But she's still out there protesting. And she was one of those people who she said her brother got in a little trouble with drugs, and that was about it. Of course, in California, if you get in trouble with drugs, they can, and you're Hispanic, you're automatically a gangbanger too, which is fucked up. And I think they labeled him a gangbanger, if I'm remembering correctly. But he was into drugs. So what? It's his right. And he ended up going to jail over it, and he was on probation. But then that's the other thing, too, is people think because, this person got in trouble before, so that automatically means that it's okay to fucking kill them because they must have done something. So you have two types of people that really bother the shit out of me. The one is the people that think that just fucking started happening because they started reporting it on the news. That was a pause on purpose. Just as I was talking about earlier when I pause on purpose. The other is the people that blame anybody who's ever been in trouble before, and the government media, they're all over this because they're going to print everything you've ever done in your fucking life, especially now with Common Core where they collect all this information. They'll say, well, he got into some trouble in school and he did this and he did that. I was arrested and charges weren't even filed because I was arrested for something that wasn't even a crime. It was obstruction of an officer. Supposedly they said I lied to them, and they arrested me for a knife that was legal, just a little pocket knife. But I bet they would bring that up. Oh, he's been arrested. He was arrested for this if I was killed by the police. But of course the cop that my screen went to black again, or a screensaver again, so I'm logging in. Of course, if the cop, they don't bring up the record of the cop. They don't bring up the record of the cop did this and the cop did that. I'm not even talking about what the cop did in their personal life. Never mind that. What about all the fucking shit they did while they were on the force? They won't release that. In some places, they passed a law that they're not going to release the name. That's how bad it is. And, of course, they'll use, the officer could be in danger. It's all about the danger of the officer. If the officers are there to protect the people, supposedly, which we know they're not, what does it matter? Isn't it supposed to be about protecting the people? So shouldn't they be the ones who's... Well, I guess at that point their names being released doesn't matter, but it's everything to protect the officer, nothing to protect the victims, the people that are being murdered. And the whole thing is, it doesn't matter because when it comes down to it, these officers are fucking pussies. And they can't say the name because they're like, if they're not going to be on duty and they can't call all their boys because they're nothing without them, of course. I've heard stories from people that can verify them, how much of course, this was the Detroit Police Department, but how much of pussies that the Detroit Police Department and the surrounding areas are. Now, I shouldn't say that. I have no plans on going to Detroit, but not like a lot of people listen to my show anyway, so I don't think I really have to worry about it. But that a guy came in with I told this story before, a 20-gauge shotgun, not a 12-gauge, but a 20-gauge. All the officers hit the deck, ran out the back. Not like in the movies where they're, either rushing the guy or they're having a shootout with him trying to bring him down. And I'm not fine with officers existing. And I don't mean existing like they're alive. I mean having police. But being that they do in a situation like that, I have no problem with an officer firing back when they're being fired at. But, of course, if they're pussies and they're running out the back door, they're not firing at anybody. So I want to make sure that, and I have a show scheduled for next week to talk about the police some more, because I want to make sure that I don't lose sight of that. I mean, that was one of the most important things, and I've kind of gotten away from it. And of course, it still goes on every day. Nothing's changed. It's just, it didn't seem to be making a huge difference. Although that's not true. Sometimes it did. It would depend. But I just kept repeating the same story over and over again. It was a different person, and the cop did the same thing to another person. So I need to think of more creative ways to get this information out there, yet still entertain people that they'll tune in. And I don't mean it's entertaining for somebody to get murdered by a cop, and please don't take that the wrong way. But what I mean is that it's boring for people to listen to the cops doing the same story over and over again, but if it's a different person getting shot. So I'm going to take a quick break. We still got a lot to talk about. And when we come back, I have a couple more articles. We also have what's going on with the Bundy family, the Beyonce story, as well as the young jerks that we'll get to. You can call in at 702-470-7664. That's 702-470-7664. Or you can Skype into the show. The username is NonPartisanLIbertyForall. Just send a contact request and your name and what you want to talk about, and we'll get you on the air. So we will be right back after this. NonPartisanLIbertyForall.com.
Well, continuing the story of Cliven Bundy and his brave standoff, according to some in the country, against federal.
Sorry, I didn't have my mic up there. Just so everybody knows, here's the young jerks, and this guy's got to be like 50. So I don't know why he's a member of the young jerks, or they're really called the Young Turks, but as far as I'm concerned, they're the young jerks. Anyway, we'll be right back after this.
Authorities, they've won so far. He got his cattle back. If you don't know the whole story, he had his cattle grazing on federal land that is not his property. He had not paid grazing fees, over $1 million in the course of the last 20 years. And so the federal government had taken 400 of his 900 cattle grazing on their property and said, hey, look, we'll give it back to you when you pay the fine. And then they showed up with guns, Cliven Bundy and his bunch. So when they did, Bureau of Land Management actually relented and gave back the 400 cattle, which I think sets a terrible precedent. So now, in the meanwhile, Bureau of Land Management said, look, it's not over. We still have some remedies that we can pursue. And speaking of saying it's not over, Harry Reid came in to regulate like this.
Well, it's not over. We can't have in America people that violate the law and just walk away from it. So it's not over.
Damn! Regulating with sunglasses and all. So now here comes Sean Hannity. He's going to have Cliven Bundy on his show. And he's going to try to poke him to get him to say, yeah, well, shoot him, right? So in the beginning, he first does a setup. Let's watch.
A former Nevada sheriff claims that his sources inside the federal government say that the Bureau of Land Management may be quietly planning to raid the Bundy ranch. Now, we reached out to the former sheriff, Richard Mack, for confirmation. He told our team of producers today, quote, we have intel, sources, government, and law enforcement insiders that have told us the federal government was considering pulling back, having us think think that everything was fine. And then when we got comfortable and dropped our defenses, then they would come in and raid the ranch. We don't know if it was a specific plan, but after hearing Harry Reid's comments, we think they're going to come in for a surprise midnight raid. So given that warning, could there be another standoff brewing tonight?
Now, if you don't remember, Richard Mack is a former sheriff who said that they would hide behind their women and children and hope, specifically actually women and daughters, and hope that the federal government officers shoot them first. So brave guy. And Ben, if you noticed in that statement, he said an incredibly specific plan that the federal government had, and then turned and said, we don't know if it's a specific plan.
Don't know if it's a specific plan. Yeah, we heard that they might be considering. I can't identify the sources, but we heard that they might be considering. And by the way, of course they were considering it. I mean, what do? One of the possibilities is a raid. I'm sure they talked about a raid, and then it sounds like, first of all, I don't think the Office of Land Management doesn't seem raid ready.
Yeah, I don't know that they've got a lot of SWAT teams in the Bureau of Land Management. So
sorry about that technical error. I know what I did there. I happened to reopen a file, which brought me out of that.
Well,
so
continuing the story, and said, hey, look, we'll give it back to you when you pay the fine. And then they showed up with guns, Cliven Bundy and his bunch. So when they did, Bureau of Land Management.
This is from the original story of Cliven Bundy and what had happened in 2014. The reason I wanted to play it is because I wanted to play the young jerks and what they had to say about it.
Actually relented and gave back the 400 cattle, which I think sets a terrible precedent. So now, in the meanwhile, Bureau of Land Management said, look, it's not over. We still have some remedies that we can pursue. And speaking of saying it's not over, Harry Reid came in to regulate like this.
Well, it's not over. We can't have in America people that violate the law and just walk away from it. So it's not over.
Damn! Regulating with sunglasses and all. So now here comes Sean Hannity. He's going to have Cliven Bundy on his show. And he's going to try to poke him to get him to say, yeah, well, shoot him, right? So in the beginning, he first does a setup. Let's watch.
A former Nevada sheriff claims that his sources inside the federal government say that the Bureau of...
See, and he's totally leading... he's leading it a certain way. He takes the story and totally manipulates it. This is not real news. Now, again, it is an opinion show, so don't get me wrong. When you listen to me, is it real? Would I call my show a real news show? I would say definitely not. I would call it an opinion show based on news. However, I try to get the facts when I'm actually giving facts. If I'm giving an opinion, you could tell I'm giving an opinion. A lot of times I'll say, in my opinion, but I've stopped doing that because I think it's just granted that, this is my opinion. And you could tell when I'm actually reciting a fact. So it's opinions based on fact. But what he does is make it try to sound like he's giving you facts when he's not. He's giving you part of a story to twist it and manipulate it into what he believes it is. And I'll play the story that they did after. I believe I have it. I'm not sure because I kind of just they kind of just made me sick because everything was, well, as far as what happened in Oregon, well, if it was a different race, then it would have been totally different. The only reason they're all not dead is because of this. And there's a lot of other reasons. Now, again, if the story was actually a little different, I may agree with them. But based on what happened, they went to an abandoned federal building in the middle of nowhere that nobody was even in. And so They just piss me off. But all they are is fucking, they're Rachel Maddow clones, essentially. This fucking Jerk Unger.
Land management may be quietly planning to raid the Bundy ranch. Now, we reached out to the former sheriff, Richard Mack, for confirmation. He told our team of producers today, quote, "We have intel, sources, government, and law enforcement insiders that have told us the federal government was considering pulling back, having us think that everything was fine, and then when we got comfortable and dropped our defenses, then they would come in and raid the ranch. We don't know if it was a specific plan, but after hearing Harry Reid's comments, we think they're going to come in for a surprise midnight raid." So given that warning, could there be another standoff brewing tonight?
Now, if you don't remember, Richard Mack is a former sheriff who said that they would hide behind their women and children and hope, specifically actually women and daughters, and hope that the federal government officers shoot them first. So brave guy. And Ben, if you noticed in that statement, he said an incredibly specific plan that the federal government had, and then turned and said, we don't know if it's a specific plan.
We don't know if it's a specific plan. Yeah, we heard that they might be considering. I can't identify the sources, but we heard that they might be considering. And by the way, of course they were considering it. I mean, what do? One of the possibilities is a raid. I'm sure they talked about a raid, and then it sounds like, first of all, I don't think the Office of Land Management doesn't seem raid ready.
Yeah, I don't know that they've got a lot of SWAT teams in the Bureau of Land Management. So, first of all, if they did raid Cliven Bundy's ranch, it would be interesting if they gave Elian Gonzalez back.
It would be.
They just brought him back. They're like, here's Elian. I'm like, what? What is this?
Right. What did they say? We got the boy. We got the boy.
Yeah.
We got the cows. We got the cows. We got the cows. Go, 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 go.
Yeah. Like, what's the equivalent of Geronimo? I don't know.
The equivalent of Geronimo?
Like, when they got Bin Laden, Geronimo.
Oh, right.
For God and country. Cow. 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 Okay. By the way, they wouldn't be raiding his ranch. This thing makes no sense whatsoever. What they would be doing is grabbing the cattle that's on federal land.
That's right.
So they could actually just saunter over and get the cows whenever they want.
Well, they can't saunter over because a bunch of people have showed up with guns and could conceivably shoot.
Yeah, and so look, the thing is, if Bundy had the cows on his own ranch and the federal government went to go get that, I'd be against the federal government. Be like, what are you doing on the guy's ranch? The whole problem is it's not on his property. They're not on his ranch. It's a tiny melon ranch, by the way, of all things. But so now Hannity's going to come in and he's going to try to rile him up. He's got Bundy on the air and he's like, what if they come? What if they come? Here, watch.
What do you make of the sheriff's comments, Cliven?
I really don't know nothing about that. I can say one thing. We had a beautiful moon last night, and I thought, that thing might be fixed up there by the federal government, but I'm not sure. It wasn't different. That was for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's crazier. Sean Hannity, who has this conspiracy theory about how they're going to raid the ranch in the middle of the night with no specific plans, or Cliven Bundy, who's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know nothing about nothing, but that was a nice moon. Was it the federal government? Wait, federal government who did what to the moon?
I think maybe it wasn't moon. It was so bright that it was a spotlight shining down, and a chance for them to surveil what was happening at the Bundy ranch.
Or they could send a drone, but okay. So now, but that didn't work. To Cliven's credit, he didn't buy.
He wouldn't take the bait.
Right. So I'm sure Sean Hannity's going to leave it alone, right?
Sure.
All right, but let's put these two things together here. We have Richard Mack, the former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. He made the comment that he has sources inside the federal government warning that the weekend retreat was only a move to distract attention, diffuse tensions, because a raid on the family's ranch is being planned. Couple that with Harry Reid's comments that this is not over. You've got to believe that something is brewing here, no?
Well, I got something to say to Harry. Harry, Nevada citizens, we the people elected you to go back to the United States Senate and take care of the United States business, which might be something like defend us from foreign nations. Harry, get back there and take care of that work and leave us alone here in Nevada.
Now, I'm not a fan of Cliven Bundy. I think he should pay grazing fees like 16,000 other farmers who use federal land. But here, Hannity's trying to egg him on, and he's...
Right. Of course, don't forget about all the other farmers that were in that area that are gone now. You don't live in the state of Nevada, you fuck. You're not looking at all the farmers, because you don't care, that are being basically pushed out. We need farmers for food. We don't want to eat Monsanto fucking food. And, you know, this land, he keeps saying, he said in another thing, oh, Cliven Bundy still owes us $1 million. Really? He owes you $1 million? You're getting some of that money? You getting a check? Because you're not getting shit. And neither am I, and neither is anybody else. It's going to the government to blow it on some bullshit. Just like they spend money on 99.9% of the shit that they spend money on doesn't benefit anybody who has a fucking job and actually does what they're supposed to do and is responsible. You know, except unemployment is something I think that, you know, that's fine, although I think that should be privatized, that they give you, take less money in taxes, and then you can get your own unemployment insurance. And it would be through work if it didn't exist. I guarantee you that it would be offered at most jobs if it didn't exist. And if it wasn't, you could go get your own private unemployment insurance and probably get a lot more fucking money. All these things the government does, there's no competition. They're going to take your money. You can't say, hey, can I take my money and invest it someplace else? No, they're going to take it. So fuck you. And, you know, your bullshit. Like this, I remember this other fucking progressive. Oh, the $1 million that he owes us, because that's how he sounds. He doesn't, again, whether the government gets the $1 million or doesn't, who is the government to tell him that on public land that you can't graze your cows? There's nothing out there. Now, Cliven Bundy, I have issues with him because he thinks it's okay for the state to bill him too. But no, it's just fucking land. The state or the fucking federal government shouldn't own land. If it's the people's land, then why shouldn't they be able to do what they want with it? Anyway, I'm going to play the rest of this, and then we'll get into what's going on with Cliven Bundy and his family. And while we do that, we'll also talk about the young jerks, because as I said, I believe I have the other story where the recent story where Cliven Bundy was arrested. And if I don't, I'll find it. So let's get back to the clip.
Like, no, I'm going to talk about the moon, and I'm going to say, Harry Reid, go ahead and deal with foreign nations, and he does it in his fun, colloquial way. Okay.
Yeah, totally. And Sean Hannity, who didn't get a rise out of Bundy the first time around, then recounts.
Finally, the militia up in Oregon has surrendered. Now, 1,000 armed militia arrested. Now, if you're a right-wing, then you're, I'll do it too. Okay, so now remember, this is, don't tread on me and American patriots and, you know, they're grazing rights, and that's what this whole thing was about. And two guys had gotten arrested for arson, but it was about property rights and stuff. So what was David Fry's last rant? Nothing about grazing rights, nothing about property rights, nothing about anything that they had mentioned before. It was about Trayvon Martin, UFOs, and abortion. So let me read that last part for you.
Sorry, I actually, because I was trying to make sure I had the clip, that is the actual clip that is what happened later. So let me go back to the beginning clip that I was playing, and I do have the clip that they did a couple days ago, and I'll try to get this back to where they were. Sorry about that.
Continuing the story of Cliven.
And they're planning a raid. Who didn't get a rise out of Bundy the first time around, then recounts the former sheriff's, quote, and tightens it up and leaves out all the speculation in the quote.
Yeah.
This time he says, no, the sheriff says he went back, he has intel sources that say this is a distraction and they're planning a raid. Put that with what Harry Reid said, which was as if Harry Reid said, oh, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
And put those things together, you got to think something's happening.
Right. Of course, by the way, Harry Reid's spokesperson, Kristen Orthman, put out a statement, quote, there's no truth whatsoever to these conspiracy claims by right-wing websites, referring...
Another fucking douchebag. Yes, and I know there were some claims about Harry Reid being connected to the land, something about China, all of this shit. Who knows what was going on with that? I don't know that had anything to do with anything. But it had to do with the government, one, taking control and getting their money. Two of the things that they love to do is control and money. Whether it had anything to do with fucking China and deals Harry Reid made and all of this other shit, I have no fucking idea.
To midnight raids and stuff. The idea of Harry Reid in a midnight raid is hilarious. Okay, so now if we...
And again, I was kidding about... obviously, at some point, when there are people with guns there and they have a right to the cattle that is on the federal land, they have to consider some degree of whether there'll be violence and some sort of police action, and they would be irresponsible for federal authorities not to consider that possibility. But nobody wants to fight. Nobody wants a bullet fired at anyone, by anyone.
Now, if we had left it right there, then everybody's fine.
The
but you know
police,
what? Hannity is still not going to let it go. He comes after it for the third time, and finally, Cliven Bundy gives him what he wants.
If you have no business here in Clark County, Nevada.
Yeah. Well, if he's saying it's not over, and then you have a sheriff saying he has sources inside the government, what would happen? God forbid. I mean, we saw the raid, for example, back with Elian Gonzalez. I'm not sure if you remember that raid. What would happen if they came in the early morning hours one day to your ranch?
Well, first I got to say, Harry, get your army out of Nevada. Get your army away from my ranch and off Clark County public land, and keep it out. And if they come, we'll deal with them tonight. If that's what we got to do, we'll just deal with you. Just when you got guts enough to do it, come on.
Yeah, that's what he got it. He forced it, and he forced it. I'm not even going to give Cliven Bundy a pass on that, because he just went and he went. And the point that I completely forgot was really the point you already made, that we want to back up, and Sean Hannity did a nice job there of making it extra clear. They came for Elian Gonzalez because that's where Elian Gonzalez was.
Right.
That was the focus. They had to get him. Like, does Sean Hannity at any point make clear that this is about grazing on federal? Why would they go to his ranch?
Yeah.
Why would they go to his ranch?
Just to be like, hey, rub it in, be like, hey, dude, we got your cattle.
What? I've had enough of this.
Oh, God.
Promoting the ideas of true freedom and liberty, Nonpartisan Liberty for All Radio with Dave Bourne.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All, and this is your faithful host. Actually, I don't know that. I would consider myself faithful. I guess having faith is faithful. I guess I have faith in certain things, in certain areas. Anyway, I am your host, and it is the last day of the week for the show. So we are here, of course, live from Las Vegas, Nevada. You can call into the show if you'd like. Go to NonPartisanLibertyForall.com to get all the information, or you can call 702-470-7664. That's 702-470-7664, or you can Skype into the show at NonPartisanLibertyForall is the username, all one word, and send us a contact request with your name, where you're calling from, and what you want to talk about. And I would send a text if you are trying to call into the show. I'm surprised. I had talked about earlier that I was looking at another show that the host was definitely more professional than me. And when I say professional, people really didn't understand this. I had someone who was kind of unclear on what I meant. And what I meant was that they sound like a professional radio host, that they sound like somebody who went to school for radio and their show is done at a high quality. So I was listening to them earlier, and they got a lot of phone calls, but I think the reason they did is because they're on a few different stations, and they're probably big stations. They're in, I believe, Wyoming, most of them, but they're probably the bigger stations in Wyoming. But anyway, they definitely did a better job when it came to being professional, again, as I see it. So, as I mentioned, what I do is try to be the most professional and the best at what I do. I don't try to compete with other people and say I'm better than this person or I'm better than that person or whatnot. Definitely sound quality, I will do that, because as far as Las Vegas goes, I have not heard a show in Las Vegas that has better sound quality. I heard one show that maybe has just as good, that their sound quality was pretty good. Maybe not better, but either just as good or worse, but not that much worse. But there's some shows in Las Vegas, man, that they're on Blog Talk Radio and they just call in on the fucking phone and it sounds like shit. And it really doesn't. And I used to use Blog Talk Radio too, but even mine wasn't as bad when I used Blog Talk Radio because I would use a pretty good microphone. But it doesn't matter what you use on Blog Talk Radio. You're not going to get that good a sound. So I'd advise those people to get off Blog Talk Radio. And really the only way to do that and have the same functionality, and I still don't have 100% of the functionality. Like, I lost a lot of listeners because of the phone, the ability to be able to just call in and listen via the phone. So I don't have that function anymore. I had it on Blog Talk Radio. So I wasn't going to keep Blog Talk Radio for $100 a month just for that. Mark Edge had mentioned to me, and he gave me the information, but I'm going to have to ask him again or go through my emails. But there was a cheaper service, or I think something they said they got for free or something, but maybe they get it for free. But I'd pay like $25 for it or something like that, or $30 to have a phone line where you can listen via phone. Anyway, those were the Young Jerks. The main guy is the guy I can't stand. The fucking, I think his name is like Jerk Unger. He's a former Muslim. There's nothing wrong with that. But he's just a jerk off. Anyway, going back into the Cliven Bundy story, I just want to give a quick summary of what happened. I did do a show around the year anniversary, which was April. That's been a while now, because this April will be it was April, right? Because I'm thinking it wasn't that long ago that we did the year anniversary, but I believe it was April, unless it was October and I'm just totally retarded. But I thought it was April, so I could be off on that, to be honest, of when it originally happened, but I believe it was April. So, anyway, it had happened in then, and let me see when this was dated, because that would actually help me to figure out, but I'm pretty sure it was April. But anyway, you had heard a lot from the interview there about what went on. And essentially it was, he'd been grazing his cows there for years. The federal government feels that they should get some money out of it. I guess he paid the state government. His issue was the federal government. So to me, I have a lot of issues with him anyway. And when I say I have issues with somebody, I don't mean like I have issues with him like I despise the guy or something. I should say disagreements, because he's the type of person who sounds like, hey, he's one of those constitutional sheriff type people. So what he says is, oh yeah, if the sheriff told me to leave or the sheriff did this, then that's fine. If the federal government does it, it's not okay. So he's one of those people that want to be ruled at the state level, but he still wants to be ruled. Yes, it's less people deciding. So in theory, is it better? Well, it's better having close to 3 million people making decisions than 300. Yeah, but at the same time, you're still ruled over. And we did a show about constitutional sheriff versus a police commissioner, and a constitutional sheriff having the ability to pretty much do what they want and run their county. And that's how they feel out west. And you have Arpaio, who I think is a nut. Now, Ken Chorgen, who we had on yesterday, who lives in his county, I believe. He lives in that area, so I'm not exactly sure if he lives in his county, but I'm pretty sure that he does. And if he doesn't, he lives like right outside of it, and he's very familiar with him. He seems to have a different opinion on it, but the whole point is now you have one person ruling you as a sheriff, and they can pretty much get away with whatever they want because they're supposed to be like the king of that county, essentially. So I disagree with him there. I mean, the people that just have and I'm reading something, that's why that kind of fucked me up. But the people that just have this whole thing that they want the federal government gone, but it's fine if we have the state government, it really doesn't make much of a difference. You have less rulers. That's really what it is. But anyway, the major issue was the Bureau of Land Management threatened him. They came and took his cows. They said that they owed $1 million to the federal government. Then Cliven Bundy didn't ask for them to do this, but militias came down, supposedly over 1,000 people. There was a standoff between the Bureau of Land Management and the group of armed people. They got the cows back, and they continued to graze the cows, from what I understand, after the Bureau of Land Management actually backed off. But there was a standoff. It's on film. David Knight of InfoWars filmed the whole thing, so you can actually see it. And the BLM actually backed off. And from what I understood is after that, everything pretty much stayed the same. That he kept grazing his cows, and he's been doing that since, which, if my calculations are correct, it's been almost 2 years. I'm still thinking I'm off on that for some reason, that maybe it was October. But April is in my head. I don't know why. So let me look on what I had just played and see if there's anything on there that I can tell if it's April, because the file wasn't downloaded in April, so that's not going to help me. Maybe if I go to, well, no, because these are all going to be, oh, wait, if I go to, okay, maybe if I go to April and see because I did a show on the year anniversary of what happened there. So it doesn't look like it was April. Maybe it was October. Let me just search for Bundy, because I want to make sure I have this right here and how much time. So here's something from December, but yeah, it was April, because I have here. Well, wait, maybe not. Let me open this. Oh, here was the year anniversary. Okay, so it was April, so I was right. I was doubting myself. So yeah, it's going to be 2 years. So that everything kept going on. Now, during that time, and I did a show on this last week, the two of the Bundy brothers, Ryan and Amon, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name, or Amon. It's not, I don't think it's Amon. I actually had a friend of mine in high school and after high school, but he might still pronounce it Amon. It's Ammon. I'll just call him Amon. Anyway, so Amon and Ryan Bundy. So they went to Oregon, and again, we did a show on this in the past couple weeks. I don't remember the exact date, but it was rather recently. And what happened was this Ryan Lavoie ended up getting shot and killed in the process. Now, from what I understand was they went to this town in Oregon where, well, actually, let me start at the beginning just to refresh everybody's memory on this, or people that don't know, that there was a father and son who were, and let me see if I can actually find my show prep for that day. I should have had this out, but because if I can find the show prep for that day, it will make it a lot easier for me to pull the notes and make sure I don't miss anything. So let me find out from Facebook the actual day, but it was in, or Spreaker, I guess I can find it from there. It was in the past couple weeks, but there was a father and son, and I guess supposedly they were able to, there's something in the desert, because I think it was desert type land as well, where they're able to burn the ground and it's better for it and it does whatever. So they light like controlled fires there. And the father and son did it. I guess somehow it hit the federal land, and there was some law passed after the Oklahoma City bombing by the U.S. government. Of course, that's my opinion. And after the Oklahoma City bombing, it's funny how every time something happens, they have legislation ready to go that's ready to get passed right away. But that usually happens. So there was a law passed, and it had something to do, there was a section, I believe, that had to do with arson or something like that. And by what they did when they burnt down well, they didn't burn down anything, but when they did the controlled fire to burn the land, which again, I guess helps the land or whatever. The show was actually on January 28th. So they did that, and somehow they did something that violated this law. So it was the Hammond family. So they had a controlled fire. The fire burnt some of the federal property, and that was the crime. But the government was notified beforehand that they were going to do it, the BLM, because I guess they do these things, and like I said, it's good for the land. I mean, it's basically just sagebrush and desert. There was a cousin who I guess had an issue with them or had a beef with them and tried to say he almost got burnt or something like that. So the judge essentially said, like, okay, this is fucking ridiculous. Well, he didn't say that because he would have totally let them off. That's why the justice system is just so fucked up in so many ways. But instead of it's supposed to be a mandatory 5 years due to this law that was passed in 1996, but the father got 3 months, and I guess the son got a year, maybe because the son was in trouble before or something like that. So they served their time. Then what had happened was the federal government didn't like the fact that they didn't serve their mandatory 5 years. So they appealed it. And this is after, I don't have the year. For some reason, I think it was like 2011. But for whatever reason, the federal government said, hey, we're going to go after them. You know, the DA can put this on his resume or whatever. Fucker. And we're going to give them the 5 years. Which I don't get why they didn't get credit for time served. Because they from what I understand, they're serving 5 more years. But anyway, so somehow they were able to give them the 5 years. And you would think, well, isn't that trying them again for the same crime? Now, it may be a technicality that they're saying, well, they're not trying them again for the same crime, but the judge didn't follow the law. However, it shouldn't matter. If you served the time already, why should you go and serve 5 more years? I mean, this is ridiculous. So they're serving 5 years. So they turned themselves in January, I believe. So what happened was, so there were 2 issues here. There were 2 issues to the people that occupied Oregon. And I think it was Burns, Oregon. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing there. So there's a federal building, which this is January. It's cold in there. There's nobody there. I don't even know if they still use this fucking building. And it's just, it's pretty much empty. There's no one around. So they said, well, we're going to occupy this federal building. To me, it would be the equivalent of homesteading, like, which is still illegal, but going into a home that is in the middle of nowhere that no one lives in and just saying, hey, we're going to stay here. So, yes, they were armed. I don't think there's anything wrong with being armed. I think people have the right to be armed all the time. So they got there at the beginning of January, led by it's Ryan Bundy, and the brother Ryan was also there. So some of the people in the county didn't want them there. They said they were causing trouble. Not that they were causing trouble by doing anything, but just attracting negativity or negative press and things like that. But they had 2 issues. They had the issue that the federal government was controlling the land, just like they are in Nevada, and areas are fenced off. People aren't able to graze their cattle. And also they had the issue with the Hammonds that they already served their time. Why are they serving 5 years again? So they pretty much just let them stay in the building because really, who gives a fuck? And nothing was really going on. No one was trying to get into the building. They didn't throw anybody out. It was in the middle of nowhere. Now, you'll hear in the Young Jerks how they overtook this building, and if it was anybody, if it was black people or Muslims or anybody, that they would kill them all and all of this stuff. And I definitely think if it was Muslims, they would be there seeing what they're doing, but I don't think they would have been, just shooting people. And And the reaction, too, was Ryan Bundy was speaking with the sheriff of the town, talking to him about what they were doing and why. Of course, they tried to twist it and say that they were screaming they were going to murder people. At the end, there was one crazy guy that was, like, screaming all this shit. I don't know if he was wasted or on drugs or what. So that guy was just nuts. So I understand that. But they were there, and then about 3 weeks later, I guess they were going to one of the meetings where the town council meetings, and they were pulled over. One of, I guess they were in 2 cars, I believe, and then one of them was shot. Now, witnesses say that he got out of the truck, then put his hands up, and they shot him. And Ryan Bundy was also shot in the arm. So, of course, there's different stories that people are saying, well, no, he just got he got out of the car, and no one says anything about him pulling a gun. Even the witnesses don't say anything about that. But, of course, they're going to say that. So he was murdered. His name was, I have it somewhere, Robert Lavoie was murdered by and I believe he was shot in the face. He was killed by the Bureau of Land Management, I believe, or it was the sheriff that actually pulled him over. So they arrested them. I don't know the status of Ryan and Ryan Bundy, if they're still in jail, but Cliven Bundy flew to Portland, I would assume, to either try to bail his sons out of jail or see what was going on. Not to join the protest. There were still people in the building, and they finally got them all out of there. But ever since Ruby Ridge, they approach these situations differently. Nobody got hurt. Well, of course, except for nobody got hurt when they were getting the people out. But Robert Lavoie obviously got murdered by the sheriff. And now Cliven Bundy is in jail with all of these different charges. The charges are felony charges, conspiracy to interfere with a federal officer, and I'm not sure if that's it. He was surrounded by SWAT officers, of course, as well, when he arrived at the Portland airport. The only charge that I see is the conspiracy to interfere with a federal officer. Now, that doesn't mean there's more charges and I'm missing something here. Now, the young jerks, of course, say this is all right-wing privilege. If this was anybody else, they would have killed everybody and they would have done this and that. I don't know if he's forgetting about Waco or Ruby Ridge, where the 14-year-old was killed and the wife was killed, and I don't recall if the baby was killed as well. I know the wife was killed holding the baby. So I don't know if I guess they are forgetting about all this, but here's what they had to say regarding what had happened.
Big time breaking information coming out of Burns, Oregon. Ammon Bundy's been taken into custody. At least 8 others as well. There was a firefight. Shots were fired. Multiple people have been shot. This is a bad situation. Bad situation. The way it looks like it went down was they were on their way to John Day, Oregon.
Now, from what I understand, I haven't heard anybody being shot. shot was if they're talking about when they're driving in the car and the sheriff shot and murdered one of them and shot Ryan Bundy, and maybe that's what they're talking about. But no one was shot at the so-called federal building. And when you call it they're calling it a federal building, like, you know, you think of this big, huge federal building. I picture, from what I've heard and understand, you know, this small, and I even saw some of it on video. I mean, it's like an old piece of shit building. It's not like some big, huge federal building. I mean, this is a town in the middle of nowhere. It's Burns, Oregon. So keep that in mind.
To speak at a town hall meeting. 100 people were sitting there waiting. Well, they never made it to that meeting. They were pulled over on the way. And like we said, multiple people shot at this point. So the details are sketchy. I'm not going to say any names right now who's been shot, out of respect to the families. And we're going to be going live over on Dabu 777 to talk about this as the situation is developing. The hospital is reportedly on lockdown there in Burns.
Finally, the militia.
Sorry about that. I had the wrong clip there. Here's the Young Jerks clip. That was the clip announcing that they had been shot, Ryan Bundy, and that Robert Lavoie had been killed.
Up in Oregon has surrendered. Now, it's after the FBI did what I've been telling them to do for a long, long time. They surrounded the place. I mean, how long have
Right, because he's an expert in what the FBI should do.
I've been screaming, don't let the food come in. Cut the power, right? If their ass is freezing out there for one night, they'll beg to turn themselves in. Finally, yesterday, the FBI said the latest confrontation began after one of the protesters was seen riding an all-terrain vehicle outside the encampment. What are you guys doing? What are you letting them ride around on ATVs and have fun? No, surround the place. So finally yesterday, they're like, oh, right, surround it. Okay, yeah. So they surrounded it. So they can't get any more food. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess we got to give up. Now, in the beginning, a lot of bluster, of course, as always. Sandy Anderson said, if they tear gas us, it's the same as firing on us. Don't come in. Don't do it. And then added, we're not leaving without our weapons. Okay, yes, they did. But in the beginning, they're like, oh, we're going to shoot you. Obviously, the implicit threat is here, don't you come anywhere near us, don't tear gas us, we'll shoot you and try to kill you. Okay, we're having a conversation with these guys? We're negotiating with terrorists? Is that what's happening? Now, again, the FBI did do a great job here. Nobody got hurt. Very happy about that. And wound up getting...
I don't know that I call it negotiating with terrorists. I understand, you know, with the federal building, but the other part of it that, of course, they're leaving out is everything that happened before that, how they were talking with the sheriff, how all of this was something that was not worked out, but initially when they talked to them, they were telling them that they're occupying this building. It wasn't like how he's making it out to be, like a terrorist takeover of a building, and we're in here and we're taking hostages and all of this bullshit. They were very upfront and communicated what their issues were. It's a lot different than how he's trying to play it out. So he's trying to put this in the mind, obviously, of people of, oh, look at these anti-government people and what they do. So, you know, standing up to the government, no, don't do that. If you stand up to the government, you're a terrorist. And that's really what they were doing. So there's a difference between Muslim terrorists, not Muslim people in general, but Muslim terrorists that are trying to kill people and blow up innocent civilians, and people that are in a situation like this, even if there was an incident that happened, the incident would be with the police, not going around killing innocent people neither. So there's a big difference here, and that was well known beforehand.
And the job done. I wish they had done this 3 weeks ago when it was an obvious thing to do, but these guys have right-wing privilege. You can break a lot of laws and you'll get to ride around in all-terrain vehicles, have some fun. They used to go shopping. The original 12 got arrested when they left a compound to plan a revolution in the next county, an armed revolution in the next county. They're driving around planned armed revolutions. And finally, they're like, oh, yeah, I guess we shouldn't allow an armed revolution. Okay, let's go arrest those guys. And that's when Finicum died, right, when he seemed to be going for a gun and the cops had to shoot him. So now, there was one other guy arrested, the guy who wasn't there in the first place. Sent his sons, Ammon Bundy, Ryan Bundy, but Cliven Bundy hadn't showed up. So I was goading him, and others were, hey, tough guy, you keep talking about how, no, don't surrender, where are you?
And, of course, right now, he's missing the fact that the people that were shot, and he's going to say, well, they went for a gun, and they had a gun, even though the witnesses contradict that statement of, or that story of what had happened when they were pulled over.
So he showed up and immediately got arrested. Cliven Bundy was arrested on Wednesday when he arrived at Portland International Airport on his way to Wildlife Refuge to support the militants. Cliven, 74, faces conspiracy and weapons charges. He led a 24.
And I don't believe Cliven Bundy was actually there to support the militants. I think he was there to support his two sons that got arrested. So, of course, he wants to say that he was there to support the quote-unquote militants who are basically surrendering anyway, where there was only like 4 of them left or something like that. So I'm not 100% sure that that's not true, but I'm pretty sure that he was going there because his sons were, or not were, as far as I know, they're in jail in Oregon right now. And Cliven Bundy is in jail on federal charges.
14 standoff with the government over Nevada grazing rights that ended with federal agents backing down in the face of about 1,000 armed militiamen. Now, he should have been arrested back then, but finally they've arrested him now. He owes us, the American people, about $1 million of fees that he refused to pay.
Okay, us, the American people. What money do you fucking see from taxes? Now, I'm not talking about the people that are on welfare and get all this money, and even money that you may get back from the taxes you already paid because you're not getting them all back. Unless, again, you don't work enough to actually have to pay taxes and you just get refunds, which you're living off the fucking system. But I'm talking about people that have a job where they make enough money. And most people that have a job where they make enough money that they can support themselves, it is not because it was handed to them or they didn't have to work hard to get it or they didn't have to do all of these things or make all of these sacrifices to get to where they are. I know that progressives like to think that if you have a job where you make a living wage, that you didn't earn that job. Somehow you have some privilege that gave you that job. And in my situation, I'm surprised I'm even where I'm at. And I should be so much further along than I am, especially the experience I have in the past 10 years. I haven't really moved up at all. And of course, I blame myself, unlike most people who blame the government, who blame their parents, or who blame somebody else. But I put the blame on myself. But that was, and the reason why this is so fresh in my head is because, of course, Bernie Sanders talked about increasing the minimum wage because, of course, everybody deserves a living wage. Well, that's not true because somebody has to pay them. And not everybody deserves for somebody else to pay them a certain amount of money just because they exist and they go to work. If we have time, I'll talk a little about what I saw of the town hall. If not, we could talk about that next week. But because I'll watch it on YouTube, probably listen to it tomorrow or this weekend or whatnot. And when I say tomorrow, just so everybody knows, that's while I'm at work, as I do have a day job. So let me just, again, this is not to give myself any type of credit or anything. This is just a message to the people who think that everything is privilege and that working hard is not something that you have to do to get ahead. First of all, I can go into how I worked full-time, went to school full-time, my last year and a half of school, where I don't know how I did it because I got about 5 hours sleep each night, where my father just told me, oh, you're not going to do this. You're not, whatever. I wouldn't say I even came from a middle-class family. It was maybe lower middle class. And the only thing I got was I did get a place to live. I don't want to downplay it. I got to stay with my parents when I went to school. But besides that, I had to do everything on my own. I got yelled at when I was 14 because I didn't have a fucking job. And if my father coulda, he would have kicked me out at 14 for not having a job. And the only reason I had a place to live, I left my house at 24, was because my mother told my father not to kick me out, and I was going to school, and as soon as I graduated, I was going to leave, which I did. And I left before that, initially in 99, and moved to Las Vegas, and then ended up coming back and finishing school in Boston. Then I went and got my master's degree here in Las Vegas, and of course racked up a bunch of student loans, which I still owe. I worked my ass off to learn anything I could at the jobs I was at, anything to get ahead. People looked at me like, I was a little punk. I got no respect, no nothing. But somehow, and it took me a long time, I was able to get to the point I'm at now, which I'm still not where I feel that I should be, even further ahead than I am now. I feel like I'm getting screwed over pretty much where I'm at now. But I didn't even want to go into all that. My point was, I'm working full-time. I get paid through my full-time job. And I was going to say tomorrow, while I'm working, I can listen to YouTube, just like I'd listen to music. So it's the same type of thing like listening to talk radio. Because if I didn't, I'd probably go nuts, because a lot of the stuff I do independently by myself, where I work on creating reports and with databases and stuff like that. But after I work all day, I prepare for the show, I put together an outline, I think about at different times when it comes into my mind what I want to talk about on the show. I have nobody else helping me with that, which is fine. And then I probably put about 5-6 hours into each show, counting the 3 hours I put into the show, and at least maybe 3 or 4 hours of preparation into the show, with at least 8 hours work, and then I work through my lunch, so that's another hour. So that's about 16 hours a day on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So my point being is that doing all this stuff, and I pay for everything I do on the radio. Monthly, I have to pay for Spreaker. I pay for SoundCloud, which together is about 65 bucks. I did make 23 cents off of YouTube, So I'm trying to build a station, and I'm trying to do this not just for me. I'm trying, and I've talked about this, I'm trying to get the word out about government and the truth out about government and talk about a lot about these issues. I'm not looking for any credit from anybody or anything like that, but I'm making a point that not only do I work hard at my paying job, but I work hard on this non-paying job and put all this effort into it. So this whole thing that you somehow just deserve a certain wage without putting the work in, without, I had to work hard to get to where I'm at. Like I said, I used to work ridiculous hours when I started in accounting and learn all these things and put all the time in to learn them and do stuff when I was at home and think about how can I improve this and just so many different things. And to get there, when I was 18, I made pizza. I worked at a liquor store. I did all that shit too. So this whole people think that something's owed to them, or they think that something was given to me without putting the work in is crazy. There are some people that have things handed to them. There are some people that grow up where their parents have businesses or where they are part of the elite. But that's not based on just every white person or every anything. A lot of them are white. But to automatically judge somebody, even if you want to judge me based on where I'm at now, I'm where I'm at now because of what I did. And like I said, I don't have to do this show. And, maybe not a lot of people would give a fuck whether I did it or not. But it's something I want to do. But my point being that I put the work in to try to create something. So don't sit there and do just the minimum or be half-assed and then expect shit to be fucking handed to you, because it doesn't work that way. No matter, I'm not going to say no matter who you are, because there is a percentage that it does work that way, unfortunately. But for the majority of us, it doesn't work that way. So I'm going to go back to the clip from the young jerks.
When he was grazing off our land, not his land. And then he threatened cops and pointed weapons at him. Yeah, in the United States.
And I just want to mention something. He said our land, not his land. So is that, if it's your land, isn't it his land too? That doesn't really make any sense to me. So we'll go back to that.
Case of America, when you point weapons at cops, the very least that happens to you is you get arrested. Now, if you're a right-winger, you have right-wing privilege, you get arrested years later. Right? If you take over a federal building with your guns and say, we'll shoot you all if you come in, you'll get arrested weeks later. A judge, in an effort to help apparently negotiations when 4 of these guys were still in the compound, which was yesterday, Reuters explains, a judge has cited the continuing standoff as a major obstacle to the release of at least some of those who remain jailed on federal charges. What? What do you mean release? There's no release. What are you telling me? These 4 guys surrendered? Now you're going to release some of the other guys? These guys took over a federal building. They pointed weapons at cops. They said, we'll shoot you if you come in. And one of the guys died. That's a felony murder rap. Then what release? What do you release?
One of the guys died being killed by the fucking police, shithead.
The original 12 guys, this was actually 11, another guy surrendered in Arizona, they released their bodyguards. The bodyguards were there to protect him and had weapons, and they didn't even charge them. They just released them right away. Can you imagine? Black Panthers, armed Muslims, say, no, you can release my bodyguards. They were just here to protect Muslim radicals with weapons. No one else would get released. This is right-wing privilege. Okay, now, one of the militiamen had a comical ending. The last guy in there was David Fry. I'm the last survivor of the wildlife refuge. Okay, and this guy's a lunatic. He's ranting and raving. The other three have already given up. But at that point, he's still yelling. He's saying, I'm tired, everybody. I'll die before I leave here. I'll kill myself before you guys fucking take me. If you guys throw a gas can in here, I'll do it too. No, he didn't. He surrendered.
Yeah, I don't know enough about how involved this guy was, but what they played was nuts. Now, I don't know if how they cut it up, but definitely what they played sounded nuts. However, again, I mean, they could have totally cut up the tape and took stuff out of context or whatever. I don't know, but just listening to what they have sounds nuts. Now, I'm sure there's more to it because that's usually what happens, but I'm not going to defend this nuts tape.
But he said, okay, but I get to do one more rant before I surrender. And the cops are like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I want to broadcast. Okay, we'll put it up on YouTube. Yeah, okay, good enough. I'm really hungry. Okay, so now remember, this is don't tread on me and American patriots and, you know, they're grazing rights, and that's what this whole thing was about. And two guys had gotten arrested for arson, but it was about property rights and stuff. So what was David Fry's last rant? Nothing about grazing rights, nothing about property rights, nothing about anything that they had mentioned before. It was about Trayvon Martin, UFOs, and abortion.
Yeah,
so
and that's pretty fucked up.
He was engaged in a long and rambling discussion with U.S. officials that kept returning to his opposition to his taxpayer dollars funding abortion.
Wasted. I hope the guy was wasted, but
taxpayer dollars do not, in fact, fund.
And let me just say that I don't agree with these people on everything they do. I probably disagree more on things than I agree with them. Like I was talking about Cliven Bundy and how I totally disagree with him on he wants everything to be the sheriff. Oh, well, my issue is that it's not the sheriff. I want to be ruled by the sheriff. So obviously I don't agree with these guys on a lot of things. I'm just looking at this one issue, and that is it. Obviously, I support abortion. I don't know what else he had said that he was ranting about, but who knows if this guy was drunk or whatever. But yeah, I don't endorse the Bundy family or this militia. However, what they did in 2014, I do. And what I know of what happened in this situation, I don't necessarily think they should have went there in the first place, but people were definitely screwed over. The Hammond family that has to now sit in jail for another 5 years. And what they had done to try to help them, I don't necessarily think that was the best move, but I support what their intentions were as far as what I know about them. Abortion.
At the end, shockingly, it turns out they didn't know why they were even in there. Oh, I could get the government rights, Constitution. Abortion? You took over the wildlife refuge to protest abortion? Well, how come you never mentioned that before? They don't know what they're doing.
Well, obviously, it was just this one fucking guy, you jerk off.
Broke a ton of laws. None of them should be arrested. But they're like, no, we're standing up for the people of Harney County in Oregon. Well, it turns out today, 60% of the pay earned in Harney County comes from the public sector. That's that government that they're protesting. And Harney County did not want them there. They told them to leave weeks ago. And in fact, it was costing the state $100,000 a week while this standoff continued. So it's about damn time they left. And it's about time that the government finally decided to enforce laws against right-wingers. Now, let's see how it goes. My guess is a lot of them will get very light sentences. Because if you're in any other group, that place would have been raided, bombed. They wouldn't have let Muslim radicals get soup and beef jerky in there, as these guys were doing. They were getting dildos. They were getting all these different packages in there. They were walking around town. None of that would have happened for any other group. And my guess is that same privilege will be extended to them in a federal court. Whereas if they were Muslims, they'd be in Guantanamo Bay. If they were black, they were already dead.
See, I don't necessarily I can't even say the word, agree with that. Now, Muslims, I don't know how they would have handled the situation, because they probably would have thought right away, oh, they must be terrorists. Now, again, he didn't mention how Ryan Bundy talked with the sheriff. There's actual footage of that. And this is in the beginning, that they were trying to negotiate something, and not to say that that means they didn't violate any laws, but they're missing all of that. So, and not to say that they're not racist, but if they did the exact same thing and it was, well, Muslims, I don't know what they would have done, to be honest. But if it was black people, I don't know. I mean, because it's probably an all-white town. So, but to say that this is all based on the privilege here and all of that stuff, oh yeah, that's because of this. He's leaving out a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not saying that, again, that if it was all black people, that things maybe wouldn't have turned out a little differently. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, if Ryan Bundy didn't do what he did, it could have turned out differently as well. So I'm going to take a quick break where I play this other clip that I started to play, where I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to play it through. And then when we come back, we have a couple more articles to talk about, which are scary, as well as what happened with Beyonce and why they're making some big deal about what happened at the Super Bowl, because it doesn't seem like any big deal to me. I didn't watch it originally. I watched it on YouTube after I heard that all of a sudden there's controversy. Everything's controversial now. You can't do anything without some controversy being attached to it. I don't think Beyonce did anything, but and it's kind of a waste of time talking about it, to be honest. But it does, I guess, have some quote unquote implications when you're talking about freedom and the NFL. And there's some things I want to mention about the NFL also. So we'll play this clip, and this is from the standpoint of the supporters. So I want to give them the opportunity, and then when we come back, we will talk about all those other things. If you'd like to call in, again, 702-470-7664, 702-470-7664, or Skype in at NonPartisanLibertyForall, and check us out at NonPartisanLibertyForall.com. And we will be right back. Well, actually, we won't be right back, but we'll be back.
Big time breaking information coming out of Burns, Oregon. Ryan Bundy's been taken into custody. At least 8 others as well. There was a firefight. Shots were fired. Multiple people have been shot. This is a bad situation. Bad situation. The way it looks like it went down was they were on their way to John Day, Oregon, to speak at a town hall meeting. 100 people were sitting there waiting. Well, they never made it to that meeting. They were pulled over on the way. And like we said, multiple people shot at this point. So the details are sketchy. I'm not going to say any names right now who's been shot, out of respect to the families. And we're going to be going live over on Dabu 777 to talk about this as the situation is developing. The hospital is reportedly on lockdown there in Burns, Oregon.
In Oregon right now, it's crazy. Ammon Bundy was just apprehended. Lavoy Finnegan, who he's actually, they actually just shot and killed. So we're all doing research, we're all looking around, we're all trying to find answers right now. My guy on the ground actually there right now, Brandon Curtis is getting some more details. He's a part of the Idaho 3 Percenters that are providing the buffer support. Ammon Bundy actually went out of that area. They were 20 miles away from the refuge when they were ambushed by the FBI and Oregon State Police. What you're reading on the screen right now is Tara Tini, I believe her name is, or Tenny maybe, but this is the daughter of Mr. Finnegan. So I want to show you guys, just read it yourselves. I want the world to know how my father was murdered today. His hands were in the air and he was shot in the face by the American authorities. Ammon Bundy reported there are 6 witnesses to this evil. Do you understand? From what I understand, his hands were in the air, he was on his knees, and he was shot in the face. This is what we're looking at, guys, when we're talking about American police, when we're talking about the FBI, when we're talking about state police. This goes well beyond over-policing. This is criminal, and this keeps popping up in our nation. I keep trying to tell everybody this is not about a Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. It's not about anything about that. It's about all rights matter. We all have rights, and one of our rights is not to get shot in the face if we're not doing anything that would be endangering the rights of other people. When your hands are in the air, when you're on the ground on your knees, or if you're standing up and your hands are in the air, you're not a threat to anybody. So I just wanted to break that story to you guys just to show you how the family that's left behind, how they are also impacted by these tremendous tragedies that are going on here. And listen, guys, whether you agree with what they were doing at the refuge or whether you don't, that's inconsequential right now. What really matters right now is the fact that the federal government is stepping in and taking our land. They are absolutely doing that through land grabs. It has been exposed. I have the video of myself, showing that it's exposed. They laugh at us why they take our land, and they sit in their meetings and they say, "Oh well, we own 100,000, 300,000 acres, and in this part of this part of the state, and the ranchers own 5." So they're laughing in these meetings while they're taking our land. So we know that that is a fact. We know that it is a fact that law enforcement has not contacted the refuge and tried to resolve this matter peacefully in a way that everybody can come to the table, sit down, and actually talk. Instead, federal officials were called by Governor Brown of Oregon to come and bring an immediate end to the situation, instead of her actually going out there as the leading state representative to say, hey, what can we do to talk about this? Let's sit down at the table. So we know that the federal government does not come to talk about situations. They come to kill and destroy. That's it. So they are not negotiators. That's number 2. And we can just keep going on with the list. I'm not going to go through a whole list, but there's so many things that we're learning from this situation. There's so many things that we're seeing from this situation. We can't let this go to waste. We can't let Mr. Finnegan's death go to waste. So let me see here. I just posted it up. There's Oregon ambush update, and Oregon ambush, Ammon Bundy arrested, Lavoy Finnegan fatally shot. So I want you guys to check that out. It's on YouTube. I have both stories up there. They're trending well. It's giving you a lot of information in there. It's also funny that there was a PSYOP, from some kind of weird anonymous sect at the same time that the FBI was actually raiding, ambushing the folks there at the refuge or right outside of the refuge. So, these things are not accidental, guys. You have to watch these things as they go on. It's a fluid situation, but if you're in the know and if you've been on the ground since day one, like I have and a few of my other folks, then you'll understand that there's a larger picture here and that the official narrative put out by the mainstream media is absolutely incorrect. It is filled with lies, and they will not focus on the fact that our federal lands are being taken, that the Clinton Foundation does have a hand in it. And not only are these federal lands being taken, but they're being taken illegally.
You are listening to Nonpartisan Liberty for All Radio with your host, Dave Bourne.
And we are back. Nonpartisan Liberty for All Radio. My chair's all making a bunch of noise. I am your host, Dave Bourne. And we were talking about what's going on with the Bundy family. I almost feel like singing that song, The Addams Family. Not because I think they're weird, but that would probably be a good parody for Saturday Night Live, though, even though I don't think they're weird. I think I talk about what happened the first time. I don't know about this Oregon thing, but what happened to that Hammond family is ridiculous. And when are people gonna fucking, wake the fuck up, man? And even that word doesn't work because, Alex Jones will say it all the time. Like, I think people are starting to wake up. And it's like, to him, waking up is totally different than what waking up to me is. I don't think there's anybody, I don't know of anybody, and this isn't giving myself credit. This could also be making myself look like a lunatic. But I don't think there's anybody who has the view that I have, that government itself is inherently evil. And maybe I should take that back because I think there's a lot of anarchists that maybe do have that. But I'm saying government by definition is evil. It's not that it becomes evil. It's not that there's any good in it, that it's for good, that it is meant to be there for the common good. There's just no good. Government is a bad thing, is what I would say. Like, I wish I had an analogy already planned out, but think of something that's bad and that's government. It's like a bad relationship or a bad, I was thinking of a bad girl, but that's a whole nother, that's not what I meant. Like if things are bad in your relationship or something, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about now. Anyway, it's just something that is inherently evil. That's what it is. And there may be some people that have that idea or agree with me, but there's not a lot. And the fact that not no one, but the majority of people are not open to listening to that makes it even worse. Because you have like the story I told about the guy getting all mad because I said I don't believe in government. But not only do I not believe in government, I think government is evil. And in every definition of government, as I've said a bunch of times, you have the word control. Because that's what government is. It's control over people. It's a way to, if you're running the government, hey, it's great for you because you get to control the people, you get to run things. But a king and a, what would you call that? There's like a word, not an oligarchy, but a, when you have like a kingdom, that's a form of government too. So this idea that, well, okay, government can be bad and it can be good. No, it's bad no matter what it is. Government is bad. That is my opinion. And that is what I guess I preach on the show, is that government is bad. And that's what I'm trying to get people to at least listen to. And I can support that idea. Now, you can disagree with me, and that's fine. But it's not like I pull that out of nowhere. Most people believe that certain governments are good, they just get corrupted. But they get corrupted because it's built in. It's part of government. Government getting corrupted is like a built-in feature. It's like on your computer, you have some built-in feature that's good for you, but that's you as the person that's running the computer. So anyway, I want to get to a couple of these stories, and I want to talk about, I was going to say Jennifer Lopez, but Beyonce before we end the show. And I don't think we're going to be able to get to the Trump and Bernie Sanders celebrations. Hopefully we'll get to that next week. So I have a couple more articles first before we get to the Beyonce, I was going to say, what did they call it? The Beyonce, the word is just totally slipping, or has slipped out of my controversy. And everything's a fucking controversy, right? So Homeland Security wants you to know about See Something, Say Something. And they are going to have an online See Something, Say Something. So the Department of Homeland Security, they want an extra $1 million next year to develop a public service campaign designed to increase awareness of online threats. Now, I wish I had $1 million for advertising, and maybe I'd get, some listeners and some advertisers that would be willing to advertise on the show. The new initiative will be modeled on the If You See Something, Say Something effort rolled out after the September 11th attacks. So essentially, there's not going to be any type of difference there as to what they're doing, now. This is their online version now. They already started a movie version that they have to See Something, Say Something, but they're getting more creative. If you've seen the movie commercials, the way they do them is very sneaky and it's very manipulative, where it tries to make it like, you're hurting our town and we need to make sure that the people in our town are the people that belong here and good people and all of this shit. So they're going to do a cyber PSA, and to emphasize the importance of cyber awareness. So I guess it's See Something, Say Something on the internet. So not just putting the campaign on the internet, but if you see something on the internet that's fucked up, then you need to do something about that. Meaning, if you're in a chat room and somebody starts talking about jihad or something, or anything like that, that you need to report it to Homeland Security. I honestly think that people should flood Homeland Security, and they should do it based on facts, because if you do it based on if you're lying, that's a crime. But if you're not lying, it's not a crime. So if I said, well, my neighbor's doing this and I'm telling the truth, or I said in the chat room, the person said this, you're not lying. And you said, hey, you told me if I see something, say something. Hey, I see this car that's never been here, that's here outside of my neighborhood. I never see this car. So it would be kind of like, using their own shit against them. And we need to do that as much as possible. I'm not saying that's the answer, but sometimes I don't know what the answer is. I still believe in non-compliance, and I always will. But for non-compliance, it's really a hard thing to do alone, unless you want to die in the process, essentially. Either you're going to go to jail or you're going to die, basically, if you do non-compliance by yourself. Now, if you do non-compliance with a lot of people and you can convince people to do it, nothing most likely is going to happen, and they may stop enforcing that law. But the more you think about government, to me, the more, if people are open-minded, I don't see how they can't realize how it's such bullshit. Because you think about being a human and being born, and how government has nothing to do with your humanity at all. They make it that way, but in reality, they don't. But people allow them to. And you're going to lose all of it, first of all, or any type of freedom that is even left, if things don't change. And, of course, I've been saying this almost 2 years now, but it's getting, every day it's something else. John McAfee is offering his decryption crew to decrypt the iPhone from the San Bernardino quote-unquote terrorist for free, but doing it for the sake of making sure there's not a backdoor. I guess they're using some obscure law from 1789 to say that a backdoor has to be placed in. He wrote a big op-ed. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he's offering it because he's saying that the government is using a law from 1789, some obscure law, to justify forcing companies to have a backdoor, which basically means you have no privacy because the government always has to be able to have access just in case. So whether it's your computer, your written papers, your phone, your whatever, and of course people are getting rid of written papers, I'm sure at some point in the future, and I'm talking, kind of way down future, that it will be illegal to keep anything that's not in a database or something, that the government will have to be able to access everything, or at least have the ability, so that the government will have to have the ability to access everything. And pretty much, now with everything online, they do. Whether it's, most people, their stuff is kept between their computer and their phone. And I got to a point where I don't really care as much just because I say all this shit on the radio anyway. So, yeah, there's certain things, but a lot of the stuff I say on the radio, so really what's the difference? But I'm still careful about certain stuff. I mean, really what you should do if you don't want somebody to know something is you should write it down and fucking burn it. I remember in Casino, they would have to cover their mouths because they brought in lip readers. So you cover your mouth, you come up with a code, write down the code. So obviously they can't, you know, but then you have cameras that maybe they can zoom in and get it. It's crazy. It really is. And this is for such a small percentage of things. And I think essentially that none of it was anything that didn't come from the U.S. government anyway. But McAfee's running for president as a libertarian. He, of course, originally created McAfee antivirus software. However, I believe now he has nothing to do with the company. He sold whatever shares he had in the company. But he says, I'll just read his offer part. He said, so here, this is kind of a summary of what he said. So here's my offer to the FBI. I will free of charge decrypt the information on the San Bernardino phone with my team. We will primarily use social engineering, and it will take us 3 weeks. If you accept my offer, then you will not need to ask Apple to place the backdoor in its product, which will be the beginning of the end of America. If you doubt my credentials, Goober cybersecurity legend, and see whose name is the only name that appears in the first 10 results out of more than 250,000. I think everybody knows who John McAfee is, especially the FBI, so I don't think he'll have a problem there. But they're not going to do that. They want there to be a backdoor in everything because they want to be able to access your data, because knowledge is power. Knowledge is control. The more they know about you, the better it is for them. I mean, Facebook, it's almost like a map for the government, like something that the government created. Now, as far as I know, the Facebook movie is true, but then you even doubt shit like that. I mean, it's hard to really know what's even true anymore. What happened, how you think it happened. And of course, there's things that if you're involved in something or you see something for your own eyes, but what gets changed in a story? Because I remember reading a police report of myself and, of course, knowing what actually happened, and it was totally different. And that's kind of like what happens in the news. It's like something happens and it's totally different. It's not the same thing. And now they're doing it, you know, it used to happen just because it's that whole thing where if you get a whole bunch of people in a circle and you tell somebody starts with a sentence or something, and then they tell the next person, it goes all the way around. And then by the time it gets to the end, it's totally different. So that's not a matter of calculating the story or of calculation and doing something a certain way because of that. It's just a matter of, hey, the story got fucked up because this person said this and then this person got it wrong and this person got it wrong, and then it gets into what it gets into. And imagine how that even still works today. And that's why all these things get around and rumors and things along those lines. But they do it on purpose. Government media does all this shit on purpose, man. I don't get why people are so anti-freedom. What is the issue? I guess people think that people can't deal with it. Or if people were free, they would do things that they shouldn't be doing. Or maybe for some people, it's the fear of being free. Because if they were free, they may do something that they really don't want to do. And of course, I go to the lesbian thing, right? Like, if a woman that her life is structured, she's a conservative, she lives her life that way. If she lived a free life, and a free life doesn't have to have anything to do with being a lesbian. I'm just saying being free to do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anybody. So it's not even about letting go. I mean, that's kind of a totally different thing. But I'm just trying to rationalize why freedom scares somebody. And maybe they think something like that, oh, well, freedom means that there's total chaos or something if people are free. Not that being a lesbian is total chaos, but, that people would do things that they normally don't want to do or something. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about lesbians, I guess. So we have about 20 minutes left. I want to talk about this Beyonce story and what had happened or what people are saying about it, because to me it's a non-story. So I guess at the Super Bowl they have the halftime show, of course, and this year I didn't watch it. I didn't watch any of the Super Bowl. I turned it on like twice and looked at the score. I didn't watch the Super Bowl before that. I did because I watched the Patriots Super Bowl. The year before that, I didn't watch it neither. Because when I hear stories, and these aren't stories, these are just facts, reported about snipers and the amount of security that they put at the Super Bowl, it makes me sick. And it was kind of my boycott of the Super Bowl. I mean, the NFL in general, because not to mention that the amount of times that the NFL or in one given football game mention the armed forces or the country itself is just ridiculous. I don't know when the country got to a point where they felt that before every game they have to sing the national anthem. And it's gone beyond that because they recognize these in the NFL. They not only have like servicemen month or something, they have service person family month. I don't know if that's what it's exactly called, but what it is a month to recognize the families of people in the military. And the NFL, of course, takes that as a opportunity to do more stories about the military, to recognize the military more, to, in their pregame shows, do stories on military families. And, of course, they talk about how they're keeping us safe. Now, let's get something straight. The military is not keeping us safe at all. Being in the Middle East, being in Vietnam, being in any of these countries did not keep anybody safe. Okay, they're not keeping me safe from the police or the government, who are the ones who are really violating my rights. So this bullshit that the military keeps people safe is just what it is. It's bullshit. The military does not keep people safe. I am not I do not celebrate the military. Hey, if you choose to join the military, that's on you. If you choose to join a combat part of the military, that's on you. I feel bad if you get killed, but if you want to go like what happened with Iraq, go into a country like Iraq, invade people's country, and then expect them to be happy that you're policing them. Think about that. They had martial law there, essentially, but no one wants to call it what it is. And then these people are supposed to be happy that the U.S. government has martial law there. And then when one of them attacks a soldier, they're called insurgents and they're bad people. So this whole thing of how great the military is and celebrating the military and all this money and all these bases all over the fucking world and all of this shit is a bunch of bullshit. Because the only thing that we would need a military for, and we don't need a military for it because we have people here, is if the United States was attacked. And I know people have said, well, if the U.S. was attacked, the people there don't have the training to fight back. And fine, maybe that's true, but I seriously doubt it. Because especially unless it was China, but still, there's so many people in the United States. Maybe you could take over a state or two, but that's about it. I don't know how you're going to send that many people, unless half the world wanted to take over the United States. But then you're fucked anyway. Unless you have allies, of course, but assuming you don't. So this celebration of the military and this, they keep us safe and it's such bullshit and it's brainwashing and it's brought up again and again and again in the NFL and at the games, and I'm fucking tired of it. And college, I would never go to an NFL game because of that. College, I can support. I'm a UNLV season ticket holder. As far as buying tickets this year, I think I have till June 1st. So I got to find out what the total price is. And I do enjoy going to the UNLV games. I just, they don't have the best team in the world. But I do enjoy going to the game. So I'm going to talk to my fiance. But even if she doesn't want to go, then maybe I'll buy 2 tickets and sell one to a friend or something, or I'll buy 1 ticket, I guess, and go by myself. But I do enjoy that, and I feel like at least they do the same shit, and I won't stand for the national anthem, but I feel at least in that situation that I'm supporting a college. So, in supporting a college, I can justify it that way. I'm supporting student athletes and people that are trying to get an education, scholarships, things like that. And I'm supporting the local community, which I have a lot of issues with, but there are a lot of positive things. And yesterday we talked about, going to a cashless society. Las Vegas and this whole state of Nevada actually is going to be one of those places that hopefully will help to stop that or at least slow it down. Because you go to any game, any table, any of that shit, and you are not using a debit card at a table. So they will definitely fight that shit for as long as much as they can. I don't see them embracing it. Now, I don't know anybody that is in upper management at a casino that I could talk to, but if they were going to do it, why wouldn't they do it by now? They could have done it a long time ago, but they don't. They don't even do it at slot machines, because if they were going to do it, that would probably be the first thing. They do have it. So they did the electronic when your money comes out, and they have the those electronic machines where you put it in there. So again, if they were going to do it, why didn't they do the other side of it? So you can put your, actually, I'll take that back. You can put your original card that comes out, but originally you have to put money in there. Then a thing comes out and you can put the thing back in. But originally you got to put money in there. So cash has to start the transaction. And again, you would think with the technology that they have with that if they were going to go cashless, they would have done it already. So we only got about 10 minutes. So let me get into this Beyonce story. So at the Super Bowl, it was Bruno Mars, who I think Bruno Mars is part black. I don't know what the fuck he is. He's weird looking. He has a weird kind of face. I know my fiance, I think, thinks he's cute. He's just weird looking to me. I don't know. But he has some good music, whatever. The Coldplay did most of it, I guess. I just fast forwarded through that. Not that I'm not a fan of Coldplay, because I actually am. But I was looking for what the big deal was with Beyonce. So they had said that the issue, they being these, talking heads or whatever you want to call them, that her dancers were danced. They were dressed like Black Panthers. So, like, okay, I saw them wearing like Kangos dressed in black. Besides that, I didn't see any issue. There was a picture that I saw, although I didn't see it during their dance, that said justice for somebody. And that's about all I saw. I didn't see any issue with it. And to be honest, if they came out saying fucking justice for Tamir Rice or any of that shit, I wouldn't have a problem with it neither. Now, they brought up the Black Lives Matter. The issue I have with Black Lives Matter, as I said, is they're not really Black Lives Matter. I don't know what they are. Because they're not saying anything about all the black people that are killed in gang-related shootings and things like that. They're talking about the cops, but only black people that get killed by the cops, and Trayvon Martin, who was not killed by a cop. But what they're doing, and I don't know that they realize it, because Black Lives Matter is a hijacked fucking organization, just like all these others are. And I'm not talking about black organizations. I'm talking about all these organizations that are big. Because to get that big, you need funding. And where do you get funding? You get it from the government. You get it from operatives. So Democratic operatives basically run Black Lives Matter. And that's why they call it Black Lives Matter, because they don't want it to be about the police. If it was about the police and about black people getting killed by the police, that's fine. Although I look at it as there's an issue with the police and it needs to stop affecting all races. I don't know why one race needs to be singled out when really the police need to go. And I mean that in the sense of the police have too much power. Now take that as you want. Of course, I have a Facebook page, and the government police, because we shouldn't have them. I don't believe they should exist. I think we need security, competing security companies. I think it's about protecting people and keeping them safe. But I care about anybody who's being harassed or lives are being violated. So yeah, I don't want black people to die any more than I don't want anybody to die, but especially by government. But by using Black Lives Matter, you can't just be about the police that way. And that's why it is Black Lives Matter, because you have the people that are funding them, that are really running them. That's what they're doing. So the people that are really against the police, that realize what's going on, they're not members of Black Lives Matter. And I'm talking about black people. And there's plenty of them that are smart enough to figure out that it's a bunch of bullshit. But even if Beyonce did have a Black Lives Matter supporting them message, that's whatever. I mean, that's on her. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But I do have a problem with the fact that all of this talking about Black Lives Matter is taking away from the fact that the police are corrupt, they are evil, they have way too much power, they murder people and get away with it. It's taking the focus away from it. And then it's just focusing on black people. And if it just focuses on black people, and I will say that a lot of cops are racist, but if it just focuses on black people, that's less people to use to look at the problem of the police. The more people, not the better. We don't want to see more people die, but the more people that have issues with police, that are harassed, that are hurt, that are whatever, the more ammunition there is against the police to show that, look what they're doing to people in America, and we need to do something about it. But they don't want that to happen. The government doesn't want that. So what they did was cook up let's do a Black Lives Matter thing and divide people among the police issue and do it that way, so nothing will ever come out of it except for the one thing that the government wants to come out of it, and that is more federal police, federalized police. And you had Bernie Sanders even say that in his speech today, or the town hall today. That's one of the things that I did catch, is that Bernie Sanders had said something along the lines of more federal involvement in the police. And that's what they wanted from the beginning. The federal government gave the police all these weapons. They gave them all this stuff. They trained them. They trained them to be quick on the trigger. They trained them against terrorists. They're the ones who did it all. And now they're going to say, oh, we're going to come in and save everybody. What I wish would happen, because I'm not going to say what needs to happen, is call it what you want, I guess, because I was going to say, all lives matter. You don't have to call it about lives matter. It has to be something about the police. And to me, it's end the government police, but that's just me. But something that everybody can get behind to go after the police. And saying Black Lives Matter, the police isn't even in that name. And to say it, because really, it's not that the black people that were killed by the police that nobody did anything about. All the other races, nobody did anything about neither. The point is that nobody cares about people that are killed by the police, because to part of America, they're criminals. They must be. That's why the police killed them. And to everybody else, they can try to protest and fight back, but they're not going to do anything anyway, because the cops have immunity and they can get away with whatever they want. But Black Lives Matter isn't going to accomplish anything when it comes to the police. It's not. It's going to accomplish an agenda that's already been created. And that's what it is. And that's why I don't support it or approve of it. It has nothing to do with not caring about the lives of black people. And it has nothing to do with not caring about black people that are killed by cops. I care about everybody that are killed by cops, but I'm not going to separate things into race to divide people. It's about freedom. And if there's a freedom that all black people's freedom is being violated when it comes to something, I'm going to fight just as hard on that. If it's a freedom that affects all races. It's about getting freedom for everybody, real freedom, not the bullshit freedom that they're trying to tell you that, oh, well, I have the right to live free, so that means you don't have a right to have a gun. If you want to live free and you know about freedom, you'd support guns in 2 seconds because the cops got guns and the government got guns. And don't forget about that. That's about all we have for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoy the show, please tell a friend or post it on social media or whatever you can do to help promote the show. I would be very grateful, as that's my main focus right now. Of course, if you ever have any thoughts on the show, please don't hesitate to call in or Skype in or send me an email if you are too nervous to call or Skype in, and I'll read your email on the air and respond to it. So thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you on Tuesday. NonPartisanLIbertyForall.com, and I'm out. Dave Bourne.
If you're white, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to take the law. We enforce it. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to come